Okay. All mother sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly will I establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood. All mothers, sentient beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstructors who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and omniscience, may they experience happiness, be separated from suffering, and swiftly will I establish them in a state of unsurpassed, perfect, complete, and precious Buddhahood.
Dala dong wara chibe da nu bara chibe ge dara ba da dam je jembe bara do jo bara je ba dam je je zo jebe mai nam ga da nyam be sam je dam je de wa dan da do ngar da de nyor da la da me bar bar zo be jan jo rum bo je to ba cha.
Thus, until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with body, speech, and mind.
Ma ye war do lung ai ye zong ge wa la go de re ne song de nye ma san da zong jie war de lung ai ye zong ge wa la go.
In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings.
Sanje joda zo je jo nam lai chang je bar de da ne job sun chen da ge jen so jin bie so nam je do lai pen je san je do ba sho.
May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion.
Nam ga dai nyam be sam jen tham je de wa dai de ve ju dai den bar jo je dong ara dai dong ara ge ai de wa jo je dong ara
Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confession, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. Unequaled refuge, ornament of the world, your fame pervades the 3,000 worlds. You are the victor, Vajradhara, without a doubt. I bow at the feet of the Father, Jigten Sungan. Continually I think of no one but you, compassionate one. Grant your blessings. Dispel the darkness that surrounds my heart. Please bless me so that I may realize the unelaborated nature of mind. The ground is sprinkled with scented water and strewn with flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the supreme mountain, the four continents, and the sun and moon. As a Buddha field, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness of the Buddha fields. Om Guru Deva Dakini Ratna Mandala Pratita Soha. Please turn the wheel of the Dharma of the two vehicles and their combination according to the dispositions and likewise the mental capacities of sentient beings.
Good afternoon. 가창 콩도 휴유래 되는데 가서 지 대화 노반나 이게 대외 기주 갈세나 개와 도발라 텔레테네 고 대화 용기요래 되네 가서 동ar면도 와신도 지 동ar 기주 되네 메게와 다 빵고인 바래 오다 되는데 지당 게덱 세야데 당가서 베나 산지 쯤된데 게 그네 내 개와리 내 딕파리 세네 소샤조 잭당 드가나 이게야 직당가서 베나 코미티케 딕파사송 람네 tene tele yang me shimba je ke nga cheba je ano tindi ji cha di yo ma res tindu ke ta ngo bu ne lo ro chu tam ji ke ran yi ta nga zo te la pe na en chi gi no zo na ne cho lo tindu ko gewe ke ran yi de de wa ji jong de wa ta de ga na yi ko me gewe ke ji ken diyote rangi 강에 용되와 대리 마토 베게 강사 제케다 소샤조라고 제다 강사 제케 지글이야 야보치 제를 누구치 해 말에 스탠딩 가서다 게덱 세야디 페메스 개침보래다 디에니다 가서디 그 게덱 세야디 대양한테는 가서지 개와세야디 담비 축도버치와 대양다 게덱과 로버트야 현지 모송도 오지다 현근도 도야 임바 말에 가서는 뭐네 진짜 랑랑라 somno 땅치 랑랑라 이체지네 로고야지 차디요레스
So as you mentioned before, we want to be happy, so we also must create the causes of happiness, and that is virtue. If you cultivate virtue, then you will experience happiness. And if you don't want to suffer, we have to abandon the cause of suffering, which are non-virtuous actions. So regarding virtue and non-virtue, the Buddha did not fabricate that. He didn't determine that this is virtues and this is non-virtues. For example, it's not like somebody is accused of having done something wrong and now somebody else needs to come along and punish them. It's not like that. But the Buddha just taught the nature of how things really are, the nature of phenomena, like the natural law, that virtue by nature is happiness and non-virtue by nature leads to suffering. It's not that one person had kind of made this up and decided what is good and what is bad at all. And so that is why to understand virtue and non-virtue is really important. And also in terms of virtue, when we engage in practice and want to realize our mind, then it is also nothing that we can actually gain from someone else, but it is something that we have to gain confidence within ourselves through our own reflection.
당가서 개와 또 순도다 개베도야 도자 망보 요거래 텐두 다 아지 딱 개와 자체모 드롭 세그마레다 간디나 가서다 extensive 개와 치야데 단나 가서 대치기어다 지 강사직 상제월치위 탑 뺑샤바데 나도 자주 진봉 안된 세야 여러와 태양 되네 안된 티게 지 치게 온도 베나로도 넘버 해다 지금 나큰 온도 되네 점도 맨데 점도 이자 맨데 라미넨조 다 티네 지지 되네 야 Rinpoche Ndrone, Changchub Sam Gomya, Lama Gomya, Yedam Gomya, Chaja Chembo Gomya, Ngowek Jetaviada, Tinike, Lam Rinpoche Hindu, Ndoyake, Lamga Jeyu in body. Yang Lamga Himba Jeti, Da Karsena Jig, Tindije Kiyan, Lam Rinpoche Hindu, took maybe in a yang, Karong Gejol, or da, Kandons, the Benacha Havina. Yedam Jig no, been a general second Yamlanchia no daily so or do making Yamlanchia Rasova. That Tindi Yunguyore. That in my baking young, that Tilly Jig Lobjon Segureta, Kasan Hurova, Nazo Jig Lobjon Road in the Jachimbo Tinina, that Jig Chambatan India Gomjitine, Natata, Manambanza, sorry. Mandando, Nakandi, Jidan, not down it in the Chiatalata. Coach Nyamle, Kansa Jake Jumata, Kansa Mandala, Dene, go to Tang, Tigana Ye Kanchi, Tobatan, or that Tinidene go or Jichu Nyamlande, Jachimbo China, Chimbo, Junu China, Junu Tinije, Nyamlacha Yores.
There are many different virtues that one can practice. There's many different dharma that one can engage in really extensively. And there is a path that leads to enlightenment in a single lifetime. For example, the fivefold path of Mahamudra, beginning with the outer preliminaries, the four thoughts that turn the mind, and then the inner preliminaries of refuge, 100-syllable mantra, mandala, and guru yoga, then leading up to bodhicitta, practicing the guru, the yidam, mahamudra, and then sealing with dedication. So there is such a path, a graduated path. And then there's also a different path. If one cannot follow such a path, one can also just practice a single yidam deity, for example, chant Resig or Tara as a daily practice. Or as we also mentioned yesterday, even if we can't engage in really extensive studying and learning, we can cultivate love and compassion and recite the Mani mantra. And so because individuals are very different and there are different practices for them that require different amounts of time and abilities and so on. So there is more extensive and then there is more concise Dharma practices that one can do.
Tiendita, Jatanga cook up Yabonoji, some Tambina, cook up Yabode, Tiendita, Tanda, Nambik Chu Kawa Jambi Natine, Jansi Yuba, Chingone, Jango Samna, Tene, Lamayan Yuba, Koji, Tigana Yike, Yang Chu. Shubarchi Valata, things are tap devo. Tajik Lama Tingone Tane, Himos Jena Yang, Yabore, Temaimbi Naya Tajik, Tajik Tindijik Yang, Kachu Shia Yova. Tegazam Mazi Beke, Jikta, Tanda, Becha, Tindichina, Jita, Tanda Rank or Ran Royal, Tindijik, Yore, Tindita, Tiantine, and that Tindurua. That Yamandowina, Tindi your Marita, Chanso, Mambojic Hingiore, Benangata, the Chu Sugalaya, Jalan Dogiore, Jalan Dove Gavla, Tini, Jig Pokemato Jalan Dove Gavla, Tini, Takasiore, Himalayan, La Jamne, Dogo Gure, Put Tini Savilung Bade, Tindi Tine La Tazamazi be, Tini, Tang, La. Che Oda Tindege ko Ndrochitine, Tigano Yikelamalaya, Buba Puji, Tine Chushugu Yore, Tatin Pujibu Mare, Yamatana, the Jana, Tanselama, that Tine, Kantikale Jabdu, Janake, Tine, Sajana, Yune, Tine Sayi, Tatina, Silk Road ta ngone jin through that and Afghanistan Pakistan yiri chin ta dogu sarwa o thindi chine kale khandis jabdo o da thindi je ke thanda ko kale ja magowa ke ngone chu khawani na nya yowa kawa hyuna hyoya yowa thindi je chadi yore thindi da te thindi yowa thalayang ko kokawin 요바데 코카요와 하코와 코그레스
We really think about it, and we really have a great opportunity to receive and practice the Dharma these days, because nowadays there are places to learn the Dharma anywhere. We can go. There are places where we can learn about the Dharma, and if we really want to learn about it, we can also meet with a Lama, and it's very convenient for us to receive teachings. We can either meet a Lama directly in person, or if we can't, we can also receive teachings online these days. And then also we can have many books available that we can study. So in the past, that was not the case. Many of you know that, for example, in the past, we had to travel, for example, from Tibet to India in order to receive the Dharma. Like, how difficult was that to walk over the Himalayan mountains? It was snowy and steep, and there were rivers and so on to cross. And then also you needed some offerings to make to the Lama. And not just in Tibet, also, for example, a Chinese master, Tangzhen Lama, he crossed the Silk Road and traveled through Afghanistan and Pakistan and for the Dharma. He endured all these hardships. And nowadays, we don't have to endure all of these hardships. We can receive the Dharma really from anywhere. So it's good to recognize this opportunity we have.
Da tiga na yi da che nga tsu da marbe kang namda to mambolo yo de marba tene da tingma ni tene yagala chi tene yang pa lo da ti ji puya ga set to drop go re te tama de la tene marba yang jo yagala yang do yin sta ro ya thade ro chi tene korang da ji se la so ba thade cha cha ya cha ne tene ti ka la tene 다 로마트도 휴요로와 다 말바초랑 궁로 첨보리 다 빼면서 이렇게 자간로야 레라오요 말에 드니도 지 초랑 게 로마트도 땅에 야산 말베스 양면에 초랑 그세 달만도데 땅에 야산 말베스 다 드니도 칼레카보 요레스네 다 말발이야 휴로와 tene marba hubi kabla ta marba ke land over the res on it pe massive ke kale khabores kale khaya ke samnu ji tambi na thanda ngosu de malemna ji kale khasa zono ta na thanda pe ta hena be luk hab sing ne ta pe tene hena yores pe ndo ji hubi na tene ji tana Himalayan krizib nga so zamna Himalayan krizitla koji riji khanji pass chana tene ta drek sare no zamgu yorwa ten dreg yo mare ta nga ta Himalayan korang pe ritu ne yongwa te yungde tene ko je jek jile jek khan jek jile jek thongsa du jek thongsa de tene yore ta khara mambo jela zawani rosa yo mare thongsa yo mare ta thangbo ya robe kabla 다 되게 봐 통로사데 여사레 잠지 파싱 치토사레 잠나 야게라 니만닝강로나 야 요 말이야 말로 보고 어다 텐데우케 텐데 레요레스타 마르베크 말 어다 텐데 야레 앞차리 줄 마지 치드티네 탕로 있는 조야요 말이에요 그래서 딱 원에 덴바로 단단로 좀뭐 땅미남 단다 비육 산삼 다 플랫 Himalaya ma hyung pap tsawe hyugla nga zoda 모트에게 니마트린 도고로 니마니 좀 히테 릴루크tin 릴동 모트tin 다른 뭐 도고 다들 깜바자고 여러와 tindeyoles tiga na ye ke ta thi kabla ta thanda dawo na lamgang dawo ji yore motan dawo ji yore ina ta thi kabla ko medi go yorwa so la tene ji jenzen ta ta sai dang tu ju dang ta jenzen busir ndamna tingang dowa de yore tiga na ye ke ngazo ta chumo kangala so be chudo so be ge go yores 티엔디티네 다 티리게 부게 깔레요레 손레 티니 다 깔레 섬노 땅비나 단다 거는 배 현황로지 배 어쩌지 현황 강로야 티리레스 임베이나야 담배 추 코랑 오는 지 섬노 땅비 깔라 다 강이도 정말 진로도스 다 담배 추도 배 짜체타니 티니니 다 나라란 로긴 손로 왔다 티리 즉 담배기 추게 도나라 담배 주 짜지 뭐이마 하고 하고와 좀 맞이 베게 다지 루당 롱주라서 봐 로당지 되네 되네게 되네 조슈가 강에 자 안로고요 와 드리스
For example, we know about Marpa's story. And Marpa traveled to India twice to receive the Dharma. Then he came back, and every time he had to bring some gold as an offering. And there was actually one more time, the last time when Marpa again prepared to go to India, and he had all his gold and everything ready to go. Some of his disciples said to him, "You're older now, and it's not so easy to travel to India. Wouldn't it be better if you stay and send a disciple or send your son, Dharmadote?" And then Marpa replied to that, yes, it is very difficult. If you just think about the hardship, the difficulty of getting there, it is quite frightening, actually. So now also when we think about it, what it means to really cross the Himalayan mountains. So one might think of the Himalayan mountain to be like this one mountain that one goes up and then one goes down and then one cross the mountain like that. But this is not really how one crosses the Himalayan mountain. So once you go up and down one peak, you come to another one, and then you come to another one, and it's just like as this endless mountain ridge, this sea of mountain. And so then one day when you actually come back down, and there's no more mountain, when you come to the Nepali border, it gets kind of flat. You come to a plain, and then there's this endless plain that you have to cross. And so nowadays, even if you take a car or a train, you would go several days, 2 or 3 days. In the old days, obviously, you had to walk. You couldn't have a car. And now you have roads to actually travel. In the old days, you were just going through the wilderness, and you could encounter all kinds of dangerous animals like mountain lions and tigers, leopards, and so on, and all kinds of other animals. And then you had to cross the Ganges River, which is a large river. So you had to get through this as well. So it's quite intimidating to think about having to make such a journey. But then Marpa, for example, he understood the preciousness of the holy Dharma, and that's why he was able to endure this hardship. And he said, I will go anyways. So when one really understands the preciousness of the holy Dharma, one is able to forsake one's body and also one's possessions, everything, in order to receive the Dharma. Basically, one is able to endure any difficulty.
티엔디 다 가서 단다디 코캅 요바 코캅 상보 요바디 하고 그래 얘네야다 코캅 상보 지구 코캅 상보대야 다 녜베 쳐라 다 단다베 녜만나기 텐디 말에 단다야 원의 차원에 really 다 가서고 가서 careful 지고야 기다 투수지 랩드 요레스 티인도 다 가르세나 Pena ta nambeji ka pena puina re jana ina re ta Asian mancheji nambeki je ka imbare tindi indu ta nambeji ka zola tene ta one chuchigo yore ta tegana yi ta ngarang ke experience senare ngarang ke nyamnyong de kajna phunda wina ta ji lo chungjong kabla tene ta na phagila take care 휴치고래 family 대가나 얘기다 마치지 로화이나 로페 심현라 따고고요래 하더니 힘바이나 힘바다고다 딘디게 레카 빼먹고요래 이내 양도 갈래지 야로 디시야게 되네라 복도소야 차 딜리 집이 가라다 레카 디스 뇨르노 지다 가서 Pagili specific retirement da yomari tina yang ko ji naturally ko retire no charge tene je gengo to so langone ta je karong gejor o ta tegarang dong ji da ma ji sta da nga da ya man zo ya o ta ne je tene je tegana ye ke ta po no ina kasa kala gomba yore tene ta po ji bu mare Himalayan lada ta kawaina gomba yore tene gomba to so la tene korando 오다 딘리 지네다 거지 로야 체르레비 갑라 다 로카 추스 초네더니 베다 추랑 딘리 지하게 룩수지 요래 다 대인도 베미시비키 야보래 대인도지 히렌가라더니 이제 오네 다 추크 확자 효침부 지 샤토부 요래 대인도 다 베미시비게 다 람룩수 세나네 베미시 야보래 얘네 양다 단다 배다다 갈세고래 마치 첨부 쇼레다 백 obstacle 카레라비나 다지 다 테크놀로지 세나리 다 등장 지 카버 TV 어다 드졸라티네 지가 디게 나나 지금 담만다 다야 티니 요러와 티니지 때네 다 드소 존로 저 Pena TV no ji 24-hour dati no ko zonro ya yo marwa. Le pon kapanda ji ina ya 24-hour dana zonro ya yo mari. Ina mesa zonro second ji na na ko se thong ro gure. Nima ji chusu ji no se thong ro gure. Tene ji ne ko se zonro gure. Tene indu ta tso la ngone thane pe mesi wi ke samno ma thang wi na rang yi ngone tene ji chu chia ko ka mewa. 와, 땅에서 제가 추 무가도 나도 가투 말에. 다지 내가 추무 강에 뭐 총부래. 추치네 배 세게 요래. 얘네야 다도 총 동구 요래. 고가 투부요 말에. 얘네야 다 단다 랑이게 지 추치야게 까노야 게다 냥 흉침부시 효래. 근데 다 tel라 오늘 직선로 땅지 와 가래 편도 가르도 Pena chusuji tigas chik video no da chu yamena chusu ni zum video no kapa no ta dina peno kharindo ro peno yo mada mese thola rang sem tu ya re oda lo chung chung do nga ye ta ding za ji kapa kana le lo jong che ya ji ya san do tin yo na de ge wa oda te ma yin bi ke zu thola no ya ke pe ma si bi ke ta nya ka so shure do wa oda zo sabza majina tene 원에 다지 남베 기초대 다 조치야 개지 초대 조치라도 주 토바치고 그래 공바치고 그래 삼바치고 그래 근데 인도 또 토바치고야 다 삼바치고야 다 공바치고 와라 두수지 또한 걸와 고니마 주소지에게 도상공성 타도야 요 말에 토바치고야 요 말에 대인도다 고 주소지 뜬치지 류 파차지 하고 대인도 대 나 계속 sabza 마지비나 되는 같은 마지 추치야 화차 잡라 되는 지 TV다대야 다 카파다대 등사 화차 효치 뭐 샤사리다 다 뭐참마 카파 키로요래 다 카파지 추수지 키야면은 배제 동바 동창로 차차다 배제지 다 거라 메세겐 둘람로지 라차베서 로지 다배 휴지 루스와 차로도디 다 화차 되는 효치 뭐 샤사로 디인도 다돼서 뱀메시 이렇게 sabza 치고야 효래다 당원에 지리다 텐데 sabza 마지나 당원에 지 추치야 강해 또는 향원에 차버래 티니 토마토 베게 매 힘베게 추 chuka tok mare ta jeta buddhism jibo marwa religion khande na ma shimba je ki tsembo wanyu chi ne pe so je gi yuna pe je chu ka tok pe kha bore yine yang da tanda rang yi ki ko ji ta nga zo chu chia ko kap la ya pe mi si wi ki ta nga ka cha wo wa ta te hyo ji chi gu ta te jetang tanda da nga zo ta nambe je ka 소지 레 대가나 이게다 남비지카 지고 말이다 노쇼발라 남바히 타리오로와 그 타리오리 티엔이다 다소 지 투소 돌아 마타야게 베미스 위기다 해치모 휴레 가서 내전에 지용 차네 정보 휴비 요 말에 티엔디 티나네더니 지 고체메 타서야 돼 가디용이 하고 말에 티엔디다 지 원에 전에 다 지금 가서 참아 추지해야 돼, 담지해야 돼, 배개치 뭐 있어야 삼그도.
So it's good to recognize the opportunity that we have nowadays. We have an opportunity unlike we've ever had before in old days. But also, this is a time where we have to be extremely careful about our time. So now there are many Buddhist countries in the world. It's not only Tibet, also China, and actually a majority of Asian countries really practice Buddhism. And I can just speak from my own personal experience in Tibet. I was still young. No, most people were either nomads or farmers. And so if you're a nomad, for example, then you spend your days taking care of your family and the animals. And also if you're a farmer, you have a lot of field work to do every day. And so then you you slowly grow older, your kids grow up. And as you grow older and your kids grow up, you work less and less. It's not like there is some kind of retirement plan in place in Tibet, but people just basically naturally retire there when they get older. And as they get older, they dedicate more of their time to Dharma practice. They recite Mani mantra or any other mantra. The older people recite their prayers and so on. There are many Buddhist monasteries throughout Tibet, the Himalayas and Ladakh and so on. Many places where people can do circumambulations, practice the Dharma. So we do have a really good tradition that when the people get older, that they practice the Dharma. That's really an excellent tradition because they focus on placing that Dharma imprint into their mind before they die, and that's a really important tradition. These days, nowadays, we actually face a really big obstacle, and that is the technology that we have available. For example, our phones, our smartphones, the TVs. There is so much to look at all the time. And by checking our phone and watching TV, all of our time passes by. You can leave your TV on for 24 hours a day. There's no end to watching things. You can look at your phone 24 hours a day. There's no end to watching things on your phone. But while you're watching things on the phone endlessly, life actually passes by, even just in 1 hour or 2 hours. Life is getting that much shorter. So if we don't think about that, then there's a danger that we actually lose out on the opportunity to practice the Dharma. So nowadays, especially, no one else can actually prevent us from practicing the Dharma. No one can force us not to practice the Dharma. But we are really preventing ourselves from practicing the Dharma. So Dharma has spread and it's available, but when we really think about it, what do we do most of our time? For example, if you're looking at videos on your phone for an hour or 2-3 hours, what's the real benefit in doing that? There is no real benefit. You're just wasting your life, really. Of course, sometimes there might be some apps on your phone that are educational for younger people, and that is, of course, okay. But in generally speaking, there is a great danger of us wasting our time on our phones if we are not very careful. So in order to practice the Dharma practice requires listening, reflection, and meditation. And in order to listen, reflect, and meditate, we need time. The point of Dharma practice is to put an imprint, a habitual tendency into our mind. And then if you're not careful, then instead of placing a Dharma imprint into our mind, we are placing other imprints in the mind. We have already put a very strong imprint of watching TV and our phones in our mind. We already have that, a very strong imprint of that. For example, we can see that imprint when we are separated from our phone for like an hour or so. It's like the world is coming to an end if we don't have our phone for an hour. Everything becomes empty and meaningless. And what are we going to do in this time? So that is really a sign that we already have a quite strong imprint of that phone in our mind. So that's why it's really important to be very careful, because if you're not careful, it's really possible that we lose our opportunity to practice the Dharma. And again, no one else can keep us from practicing the Dharma. Even not just the Dharma, also in different religions nowadays, it's not that people can come and kill you, or so if you practice a religion, it's very unlikely. Nowadays, the biggest danger really is ourselves, that we ourselves lose out on the opportunity to practice the Dharma. Nowadays, Buddhism is not just available in Buddhist countries, but also it's spread in Western countries. So it's available. It's just on our part, it's very important that we do not waste our time, because this lifetime is not very long, and we don't know the timing of our death. We don't know when impermanence strikes. So that is why it's really quite important to be disciplined with one's time when it comes to practicing the Dharma.
단기 그도 공도 휴주래 되는 가서 추운 염려치야 다 상제와 주 링도 권초존디 그 화샤된데 지 샤도바지 화샤 샤도 간데지 샤고래 와 아서모 담비나 대송구도와 다니 포웨게 트리트네 나요래 파도게 트리트네 나요래 대인들 가두이는 마지와지 고그래 송고래 빼난가도 다 텐데지 텔라구도와 다데 뺀도래 치 구탄바베다 칭 스케리 독로와 텐디게 빼 테네지 체생 가서 티용구요나 소자기요나야 티갑이야 다 현나요로다 항상 현나요래 다 지소 자기요래 현나요래 조고요래 텐디 현나요래 티갑라야 추치야데 마지와지 고그레스 본초 좀 드리게 텐데와지 다 냠란 칭에도 탱기도 와 강이 티베 가로 다 너무 탱기도 와 어다 티나 다 바자지 샤요로 와 티 화샤 샤버 치발라 투조 빼든 그래 와 ngazo thanda ramdo samno tangmina pede nyom mombati 화샤 쇼 쳔보 요래 티엔디 nyom mombati 화샤 쳔보 요베 딱 가르세나 ngazo 콩도디 인제미니 랑고야 요 만도와 그 콩도 랑 그래 가르세나 바자야 다시 요 콩도 바자 야메나 랑제 버진바 라와 nga 세야디 코 automatically 배효 쳔보지 려온 것도 바자지 요래 어디인데 다디 바자디 파티 총도 샤지 근데 초초크 돌아 베네 강에 티비 거로 공초 좀 태양다고 야 대가랑기 닝제제양다고 테니제게 화자 샤고요래 티 화자 샤버지월라 당이 공취유래 두조지 뚱고요다 바다 다동가서 상가 노제 택반에 빼면서게 자천보인종 오늘 자천보래 즉 테인드 태양 때네 다 냠냥 지나 체지 루질 상지 그래 송도 어다 텐디인데 다데 체지 루질 상지들이 그 몇째 나나 포함 빼 뚱고요래 다 조 같다는다 배 뭐참 개체모 효래 nga 참돼야서 빼면서 개체모래 다 참직들이 빼나 다 로섬축배 다 충충로 두소 동로 지나 가서 로섬축선 라고도 다 로섬축선 코랑 강라 다 디가라 카파리앙 요 마레 드위양 요 마레 드가나기 거지 치키 유크 리액션도 칸 유메와 드리제 치는 다 코랑 배다지 냠내 치고다 당보 배는 가서다 당보야 냠내 치비 가라 다 뇽타라 근데 주수 주도 너 주긴도 냠내 치고요 드네야 지지지 야르 야른도네 드네 다 단단 가서디 배는 너로 추도 감도 위나 드네 다 드네 장 요러와 다 너로 추도 지고 말이 장 힘바다 요르 인 너로 추도 가라 드네 지 파도 장야 말람 장야 줄루 장 알아서 와라 니나로 장거래 다 더서 장비 가라 다 제당도 못 가나 드네지 드네 다 드네 zam다 다 가서 추수 니 히잡이기로와 추수니 히잡이길 다 냠내 치고다 다 디 냠내 치위게 화치 다 샤토그로와 디 화차 티요도 드네 직디스 직다 디젤 베나로선 조선 로텐 참 디이나 제다 고파일레야 뇽몽베제세 유 드네 용거레 디스 직고 컨트롤도 오지다 라완도 오지다 파이케 이제 기육 원저 치토 말와 어다 되네 더 개체모 효래 다 개시된다 로선 조선 디톡 메비나야 지 추냠len 해야 되고 데일리 프랙티스로 그냥 가서 가라는 거나 뒤수 니마질 팀마좀 사고도 어다 뒤서로 오지 했더니 제가 가서 데일리 프랙티스 마지위나 다지 딘타제는 팀마지 지 나와지나 팀마지 지 로지나 팀마텐데 지나 화자야 토야 요 말이다 고지 다 디스 편도다 유지로와 어떻게 됐어
So when we practice the Dharma, as you mentioned, we have to place an imprint of the Dharma into our mind, an imprint of the three jewels, the Buddha, Dharma, and the Sangha. And so how we do that also is mentioned in the instructions on Phowa and Bardo. But this imprint, if you have this imprint, then you never forget about it, never leaves your mind. So you always think of the three jewels. And you have this example, for example, it is like you're chased by a ferocious dog that threatens to bite you, and you are running away in fear. And even during such terror, when chased by a dog, you would not forget about the Dharma. If you have this imprint, you remember the three jewels. So especially in difficult times, actually, we have to remember the Dharma. So in order to place this imprint into the mind, that requires time. So right now, if we think about it, the strongest imprint that we have is the imprint of the afflictive emotions. For example, we get angry. It's not like we absolutely must get angry. There's not a real good reason to get angry, but we get angry anyways. Or we are selfish. We automatically think about myself first. It's a very strong imprint. So when we practice the Dharma, we weaken this imprint and we increase the imprint of thinking of the three jewels, of cultivating compassion. So to do that, we need to take some time to habituate. For example, when we practice the secret mantra Vajrayana, we say it is so a very, very special teaching, very precious. It is true, because if we practice it, we can attain enlightenment in a single lifetime, in a single body. But again, for that, we need to take time. That is why, for example, doing a retreat is very important. A shorter time retreat, for example, would be to do a 3-year retreat. And during these 3 years, you wouldn't obviously have no phone, no TV. You would have no outer distractions around you. You just focus on practice. So during that time in retreat, at least you would practice between 14 and 16 hours a day. And then you would increase that. to 24 hours, because when you practice the 6 yogas of Naropa and also in other practices, when you do the, for example, the practices of Bardo, of the dream yoga, the illusory body, and actually also Tumo, and these are practices that you are trained in during the sleep state. So eventually you work yourself up to practicing 24 hours a day. And if you can do that, if you always practice, then obviously you can place an imprint in your mind. And so even if you cannot do a 3-year retreat, or even if you do one, then you come out again, you encounter various objects that could trigger afflictive emotions. You can't control the outer circumstance, but you can attain that freedom of the mind. And even if you can't do a 3-year retreat, you can have a daily practice to form this imprint. It's just like we need to eat 3 times a day. We naturally do that. We always do that. And so likewise, we can practice every day as a daily practice. Now, if we just practice sometimes, like once a month, once a year, occasionally, then of course there is some benefit, but we will not be able to place an imprint into our mind.
Well, that did it today. Tayang Drongji yore. Jeta yang something as a Beijing la, Thinley yore. Ta manajik tona sanji gre saya yore. Tene tega na ye ke ta ji chotian ro ji kora tingji yapna sanji to gre se Thinley yore. Ta korba le thar gre. Ta di khari sena te dembare yina ta pen go gre karwan go gre di devati miya la tin ta ngone nga so ji cheji luji la korwa le tharya cheji luji le tene sanji go yo na tana kont hiwa na ye da be ji nga so day and night wa tene je ga la nyamna chi go yo re da da nga so ndo wi na da jetang je gomba ta sang do da namju na nima da pan so go yo re tega na yi da ngara ta na ma gi da Florida ke chocho ta gomba se na thong yo re tin du ne ta mo mo nyu na ka se na ha ko me ina yang a shoki ta kwa ran ki nyam le yo re tega na yi da gongda ne da som ro je la ne nyam le yo re tin du ne da tega na yi da ji Mexico teaching down ne Sunday da kwa yo wa oda tin du ji ngarang ke ta rewan ro ina ji tis ji ko hwa cha sha to ya ro wa tene je ta chamlen chu rang gu chi thu gre tine yang chamlen ji chu rang gu chi thu ya yong gu men do wa tega na yi da ji gomba se ya da cho so se ya te pe ke chen bo re chu chi ya ke te ne ji cha de gro wa ta ji yong chan da ko pa gi na je le chu chi di ne de gri te ya ma de ya yo ma re yine ya chu chi ya pe me se ka le kha bo ro wa na je le tene ji chi go zam na ya na ge le ka tu thong gre be kha bo re tin du ji 초조 도졸라 용야 개천보래 다 초조 공바 도졸라 화자샤고 그래 대가나 얘기다 대 용도와 베나부 지다 남바이나 남베게 테네 지 북도졸라 공바트야 개천보래도와 공바트야 인디 화자샤로 그래 북중중가 디가 고 부가 동남 매반도 요다 북배 동보래도와 화 고요래 단다랑 거직 제mon도 제 드네로 지리어 디나양 고통다 제일 거 화자지 샤로 그러와 디엔디네 대가 나이다 가서 뭐 경고한다고 이나양 직녀라 임바 치투고요 말은 강배나라 랑 강배나라 인치 미니 제 공바로로나 고 공바로 초조로로나 드네 초치기로 와 어다 디엔디도서 다 가서 내가로 지 나랑께 철거도 디엔디 대양한테네 땅가서 남배 추 제야라 고갑 가네요나 생으로 opportunity 가와요나 생각해 다시지 되게 일단 나라 냠란 지냐 말로나 공반도 어다 텐데도 오지 라말라 때 Wada tini cheya de as much as possible cheya de kechimbo insa res.
Another story about what's sometimes mentioned in scriptures is that, for example, it says that if you recite one morning mantra, you can attain enlightenment. Or if you walk around the stupa one time, you can become free from samsara. And of course, that is true, but the question is, how long does it take? It actually can take an eons for this kind of virtue to ripen. If you really want to attain enlightenment in one lifetime, in one body, then we have to engage in practice, actually day and night, continuously. And so that is also why the monks, for example, in monasteries, engage in practice. They do puja every day. Or for example, I have a Dharma center in Florida, and which is like a monastery where people can practice. And there, for example, every day in the morning, there is a practice, no matter how many people come. And then 3 evenings a week, we also have practice in addition to that. And then every Sunday, we have special teachings for people. And that's also all in order to place imprints into the mind. So that is why I'm organizing all of these Dharma activities. Because if we, of course, we can practice the Dharma at home. We can just stay home and practice the Dharma, but it's not so likely that we will actually practice the Dharma at home. And that is why the Dharma centers and the monasteries are so important, because they become like a supporting place for us to practice the Dharma. And of course, we can practice anywhere. We don't have to go anywhere. We can practice at home, but it's very difficult. If you think of doing some practice at home, then again, some other activity comes up, and it's just really hard to get ourselves to really practice without any kind of encouragement. And so that is why the Dharma Center is so important, because it's a way for us to form this imprint in the mind. For example, if you have a child, for example, then it's also very important to give that child an imprint of Buddhist practice, even though it may seem that the child doesn't really understand, they just want to play, but really you are placing an imprint in a mind that later is still there. And also somebody who is older, often they won't practice the Dharma at their homes, and that is why they go to monasteries or to Dharma centers. And so I personally therefore feel that this is very important to have these Dharma centers and monasteries. So we need to find a way, in any case, to find an opportunity to practice the Dharma. And therefore, we go from our homes to a monastery or a Dharma center, and we follow a Lama, and we practice together. We have to do these things as much as possible.
제가 나기다 양고 학파 되게다 아직 나랑게 카팅도스나 다 노쇼반도스나 오이나 다 휴지 가사칼라 곰바요 말에 가사칼은 조대요 말에 딘데인도 제 가완로위나양 아직 초당 다 초족 차와 많이 봐 직행 차와잖아 가서 통대 그러와 디화자 쇼침보 샤요 딘데다 지금 가서 라마 그래 되네 초족에 다 무드조게 배 단다직 다르마 센터 자야 칼레 자기요레 로송 빵기요레 와다 딘데다디 페미시비 케쳔보레 딘데 지금 원에 장에 초족 차와치야라다 텔라양고 당이 공투와나 일이다 대가서 내라고도 자침보 원에지 자침보레 자침보디 지다 딘데코도 맞서변 넘버 상지 이렇게 공바 주는 메사 딘데지로 공바 제유나 자침보로 홀리 플레이스 차디요레 딘데지 되네 다 고자침보 지네 틀런도야 틀레곰자야 라마 요롱 메롱 강다양 틀레용야 Changchub and Phowa, the kitchen was charged your days. Teenage Kodak, not a watch a hard over. Something not a thing with Matoda Gomjaviore, Gomjabdu, Bena Gomjaya, Chuzuji Yunguyorwa, Chuzuji Yunguyor, Tanga, he has a Kalejaviore. Ta Yala Chuzuji Muratan, Tenea, Yagi Chuzuji Gomja, Ma Chuzuji down the Chuzuji Gomjaya Lata, Chuzuni Muratan, Kalenda or some good, Choji did it, Tenino, in a church hand they did. 다 대초 차로 거래. 저런 고 돈에 나 공반 로기 선배 로디. 와. 로디 갑라데. 다 대초 차고다고. 뭐라 땅데 거리디나 가르친 로거래. 저런 공반 로기 거래. 공자간 로거래. 초지간 로기 거래. 대인들다디 고지 공자야 주수지 뭐 야 매위네. 더나 주수 솜디게 두수 땅 하고다. 주수 솜게 되네. 개와노 차노기 거래. 공자비 개와다 차노기 거래스. 화자 샤도 그러와.
So this is what I also personally am thinking is that when in Western countries we do not have monasteries and stupas all over the place. Mostly people have a very strong imprint of worldly things. There's not so much Dharma around. And that is why it is even more important to have a Dharma center and Lama, people helping in a Dharma center, sponsoring these activities and so on. It's a real key, a critical key point to engage in these Dharma activities. Because this is a place where there are not a lot of Buddhist monasteries. So if you just have one Buddhist monastery there, it's like becomes a really holy place. And so all of these centers therefore become a holy place. And we should consider it that way, whether there is a lama there or not. We should go there and make offerings and so on and practice. And that will place an imprint into our mind. For example, in our center, sometimes we have a meditation event for 1 hour. And some people come to, and they drive a whole hour just to come to the meditation event, and then they drive back another hour. So they drive 2 hours to come for 1 hour meditation to the center. So on the one hand, one may think that this is a real hardship that they endure. But on the other hand, one can think that while they are driving to the Dharma center, they are driving with the thought, I'm going to the monastery, I'm going to meditate, I'm going to practice the Dharma. So even though they are just spending 1 hour in actual meditation, they're really spending 3 hours for the Dharma because they're coming with this intention to practice. And so therefore they're really practicing virtue for those 3 hours. And this is how we can place an imprint into our mind.
Okay. So do you have some questions and comments?
A question about Phowa. I've noticed that today Rinpoche was, as soon as you inhale the ka, you wouldn't take a breath in between, and immediately you go to the next set of keeks exhaling. So once again, when we do Phowa by ourselves, is it better just to do, the set of, to do the 7 heeks exhaling in one exhale, then inhale the heek and immediately move on to the next set of 7 heeks? Or for us beginners, would it be better to maybe take a little more time just to stabilize the visualization, see the form of Vajrayani, see the channel, make sure we see the lotus, and then once that's clear, then do the heeks? Or is it better just to go one after the other one after the other one?
Depending. So some people are easy to visualize quickly, but also this how much familiar. So yes, of course, maybe you're beginning practice, so maybe take longer, visualization. So you said like a pause, counter the 3 visualize, clearly, and then so later on, so maybe you can more familiar, easy to visualize. So that's maybe faster. So that's depending individual. So there's no specific okay, this much time they don't. So that depending individual.
Quick other one. I think I know the answer. I just want to make sure. When we're doing the lineage prayers, we also should visualize like the central channel also, right? Or don't worry so much about the central channel.
Yeah, you can visualize Vajra Yogini, so during lineage prayers. So that's that terwa lineage prayers ya ditanda dita ngaso jubiki lamik chenabjin jogu goda. ngaso topa chebar chila kartazungdo 차지 전부 똑같이 고요나래 다 포웨케 똑같이 고요나래 칸데 제 고요나더니 개발 지발라 탑데 카리거스나 주빌라미키 친합 대가나 이게 랑게 대바 소놈키 잡테 티솜든 좀비이나 tene 당가서 카리나 지다 get realization tene 차기어레스 이는 다 티솜도 지 만좀비이나야 tene 가서 다 똑같이 이거 말와 인도 당가서 지 단어디 레네지케 다 마이기 주바도 말 포베키 주바 손데 집에 가라 tene 다 저랑 도지 파모리 이나야 고지 주빅 라마텔레 tene 포커스 치네 China yagoyosare stubalami kichina petzeji rawa yini tesomme ba sorwandela da yini tesomme ba semtene chinde sorwandeba intellige goyosare.
So when we recite the lineage prayer and we say those names of the lineage lamas, and then we receive their blessings, and that is one prerequisite that we need to have, a condition that we need to possess in order to gain realization. So whether we want to become realized in Mahamudra or in Phowa, if we want to gain any realization, there are three things that need to come together. The first one is we need to receive the blessings of the lineage masters. The second one is we need to have faith. You must have faith. And then the third one is you need to be supported by merit. If you have those three, you can gain any realization. If you do not have these three, you cannot gain realization. So therefore, when you recite the lineage supplication to the Phowa masters, so you visualize yourself as Vajra Yogini, and you are focusing your mind on those lineage lamas single pointedly, so you receive their blessings. So in this way, supplicate them with an undivided and doubt-free mind.
Okay. So there are more questions, or there is online there are questions. 다 테리 대가나 이게 다 가서 기타 Teba yang taba sayade this jaya khabore tendida de koji teba yang taba jaya tala da tangbo ji tokpa je gu yo sarwa yin yang da tanda nga so ji ga di ten ji tene ji teba tala yang rang so so ki karsa da nga so generate rwa tende no chi ne tene teba te 다 가장 휴원한 일이 개침보리 대바 유에 까불라 베나다지 양타비게 대바 마이나 양 대바 유에 까불라 그 센타마지 차기요리 테리 대가 나이 개양 다 조컬세나 담배 추도 버치와라 맞아 존주고노와 존주리 다 존주 좀 버치와라 칸디고레 슬라비나 맞아다 삼장아로 존주 좀 지도 양 지 갈세고다 푸싱도 드림임바 지 존주들라 아다 지발라 지 기념들라 가와지 고요다 지 쪼와나오지 이러와 제가 초치야 지부 말에 제가 레카나오지 이미나 드니젠도 레카지 나랑 레카나 베 두보리 나오지 삼디나 레카다 칼레카보 쉬르와 항상 레카데베 주소 정보 두소 정보 갈레 가보 되는지 얘네다 지 depending motivation와 지 레카드 삼단 레카다 다 도보라면도 다 야보도 코지 다 배샤지 라노 요레다 대가나 이 레카 레시 그 유틸라지 펜토노 요레다 드린도 지 삼단미나 야 레카데티 슬레라오도지 그러 두소테 랑상도야 노지 드리 용도와 오다 텐두 페나이다 most important nga dharma practice nyamla chi yorwa te chiwi kawla chi nyamla chiwi ne kawla yangwa lakpar te kitene sanga chu chiatla thambosumudo nga so puzom soba nga songre da puzom soba nga chasan ruwina mina ina yang thamboji yutla kawa nyamla chi yona yu yabore zamana oji ro chi tene rang kana sakana chigona래 chotola chigona래 사자 가와 chigo나 tene 니파텔레 대원도 정도랑 다 계속 냠래 마디는 냠래 chigo나 tene 직 대사대 야 본다서 정마서 tene 베 tene 디강라 데 tene 디강라 tene 직 루랑 샘랑 루센이 볼로로 치네 tene 딘디제 토네 tene 다 냠래 치고래 냠래 지리 다 쪼와지 온 거와 쪼와 디게 토네 다 존주 잠고 거래다 존주 제단 직템비 차원으로 있나 존주미나 차원으로 그 말에 대장게 나도 다템 팀에 고마 터버지 벌라 고 존주미나 되네 어떤 냠래 지토 말와 디니제 연구요래 다 양고 학파도 개체효대 갈세나 나도 다 당이 화자 뭐보다 자타 뭐 휴자래 디니 추게다 화자 있는데 추 좋아지를 야요래 좋아지 좋아? 추그 좋아도 갈세나 추냠래 지네 송데 직다 담보야 지리 베기닝라고나 레라고 히라요 말에 다고 레게 소라고지 그러와 직다 가서 직 당이 공투하는 거 부싱 지야 요 말에 라고 틴다 부싱도 오고 요래고 얘네다 딘딘도 지리 직 타잠지 쪼발려 야디스 가버래 얘는 양다 드려야 디스 가로 냠래치 윤투네 다 화자 이라고 혀 유야보 투나 근데 초게다 지 나도 realization 라고나래 다지 냠뇽 라고요나래 근데 지 디스 다 줄이 찌거 초티 그 줄이 찌용데 초 좋아의 용어다 다 초진 근데 지 기본 오지거다 그 쪼와는 오지 초치야라 초치야다 칼라는 오지 샹노다 와, 지금 어쩌디 다 강시 몇 상황이면 이내야 딱 가서 칼라사야 될 때있고 저거도 또 쪼와 오지요 다디 이내 가서 레가 노래 상고 제신 칼라사야 이렇게 드수 돌아 당겨라 봐. 디가라고 나 칼라사기요 다 드수 돌아래 칼레카보 쇼스도 상고 말아. 그 칼라사베 갑라 때있지 쪼와 오지 때있지 집어 오지 칼라지 사기요. 어디 손 오지 되네 조치비네 칼라트네 텐더 오지 차노 거네 직도와지 얘네 야타 랩 거다 담보야 이제 비기닝도 되게 차통 말와
And so, it's not we need to develop faith, but to develop a real, genuine, real authentic faith is a little bit difficult. Actually, we need to have quite some understanding first in order to develop that kind of faith. So first, we begin with generating faith. So we reflect on the kindness of others and so on. So it's important to reflect so we generate it, even if it is not like a genuine, like effortless faith. We can still develop some faith in our mind. So our mind becomes really inspired. And then also in order to practice the Holy Dharma, we need to have some diligence. And so sometimes we understand diligence to mean that we sort of have to push ourselves. And so the actual essence of diligence is not pushing ourselves, but that we actually do something with great joy and delight, with great happiness. And that does not only apply to Dharma practice, but any activity that we engage in. For example, if you do a job and you think that I hate that job and I just don't, time just doesn't pass and it just takes forever and it's just so hard. If you think like this about your job, then it will be very difficult and time will just be very slow. But on the other hand, if you think that that's a good job, I'm making some money, I'm helping the people here at my workplace and so on. If you think about it in this positive way, then the job itself becomes much easier and the time just passes by quicker. And so this is how we need to practice the Dharma too. When we practice the Dharma, and in particular, when we practice the Vajrayana, and we often speak about those 5 perfections. So even if those 5 don't come perfectly together, but one of those perfections is the perfect place. So we should think that this is a perfect place to practice, wherever it is, your own personal shrine, or go to a Dharma center, to a temple. You arrange a neat, nice place where you feel comfortable and where you can practice and where your body and your mind can come into a natural state, a state of complete relaxation. And then when you practice in this pleasant place, very relaxed, then joy comes from that. And then you will be able to practice with diligence. And so this diligence is necessary even when we engage in mundane activities. Nothing will be accomplished without diligence. And obviously, we cannot attain enlightenment if we are not diligent. So it's very important. It has also to do with those imprints we mentioned before. So when we practice the Dharma, we need some support in the beginning. In the beginning, it's not so easy. Even though we just mentioned before, we shouldn't push ourselves. In the beginning, we do need to push ourselves a little bit, actually. We do need to be diligent. And then slowly, joy will actually come from the persistent practice. So once you have established some kind of continuum of kind of regularity in your practice, then joy comes from that. You gain some experience, some realization, some understanding begins to arise in your mind if you sustain a continuum of practice. And as a result, you will feel happy when you practice the Dharma. So it becomes almost a bit like eating food. You like to eat food. For example, when we are working, we take a break to eat food. It's part of it. We don't think that, oh, I'm just wasting my time eating food. No, we eat food and we enjoy it. We enjoy while we're eating that food. And so similarly, this is how it becomes with Dharma practice. You enjoy the Dharma practice. Of course, in the beginning, it's not quite like that, but in order for it to become like that, we have to practice the Dharma.
Okay, so we break here. So we come back 4 o'clock.
Record. Zoom. Cut or keep it. Zoom. End it or keep it.
Keep it. I think we can stop the